The RPG After Years is part of the We Can Make This Work Probably Network. Find out more at probablywork.com.
No, none of this. Back to my music, please. Thank you very much. Welcome back to the RPG After Years, your weekly show covering all things RPGs from the past, present and future. I'm Bill, and with me from America today is Thanksgiving, Scott.
Yes, the Thanksgiving Scott. You all need one, and I'm here today for it.
I'm very thankful for my Scott.
I'm thankful for all of our listeners, Bill. Whether they're American or not.
There are some I could do without. You know who you are, Jay.
This is episode 90, and we're here today for part 2 of our review of Square's much-maligned 1988 NES game.
It's Final Fantasy II, baby! Saga number 1.
Yeah, so we did the story and the gameplay, or the history, last week. And so we're here today for part 2 of the review. We're going to be doing gameplay and our final ratings today as well. And then at the end of the episode, we're going to jump over to a separate recording that Rich and I are going to do to cover the end of Mass Effect. So it's going to be a chock full episode, so hold on to your pants, I guess. But before that, we do have just a couple of quick announcements to make. So, the RPG Club. Everybody that knows what that is, it's the book club for RPGs where we, along with our community, play along the same chunks of the same game at the same time with deadlines and everything. However, if you're listening to this, the final deadline for Mass Effect has passed. You should have completed the game by now. So if you haven't, jump on that train. We'll have a review coming in a couple of weeks. And nominations will begin for the next RPG Club game will begin on December 12th. And that is open to our $5 and above patrons. So if you want to jump in and help, control what the next game we'll all be playing for however many months, now's the time to jump in and help support us. It's good for the show.
Yeah, let's try and get something that's not on a console.
Right, yeah.
I struggle to play console games. I haven't made the first checkpoint yet.
But I struggle to play handheld games.
Well, you haven't got any hands, so...
I'll just make you and Rich do the show by yourselves for a few weeks or a few months
while you learn to play with your nose.
Yeah. So on to the RPG releases. You want to cover that, Bill?
Oh yes, please. So So the RPGs released last week has been War Tales for the PC on December 1st, which is entering early access. Lineage 2M for mobile, so no one's going to play that, December 2nd. Mecha Jammer for the PC. I don't know what that is, but I want to know more. It's coming out December 2nd. Yeah, Mecha Jammer. Arc Veil is coming up for the Xbox One, Switch, and PC December 2nd as well.
Cool. As far as what's coming up in this coming week, we've got the Dungeon of Nalpil. Oh my god, that's a mouthful. The Amulet of Chaos coming to PS5 and Xbox Series on December 3rd. Also on the 3rd is Grim Dawn Definitive Edition on Xbox One. On December 6th, we've got Spellforce 3 Reforced on PC. And here's a big one. On December 7th, we finally get the release of Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker on PS5.
It's a shame.
PS4,
I can't believe it's 2 weeks late. Yeah. I'm gonna have some words with Yoshi.
All those people that took time off, we pour one out for you. Wolfstride's coming to PC on the 7th as well as Rune Factory 4 Special. That's finally coming out on PS4, Xbox Series, Xbox One, and PC. I thought it was coming to Switch too. Maybe I'm mistaken.
Yeah, I thought that was advertised long ago.
Yeah, I remember that revealed years ago. On December 9th, we got Monster Rancher 1 and 2 DX coming to Switch, mobile, and PC. I know a few people that are excited about that. It tickles that nostalgia bone. Loop Hero coming to Switch December 9th as well. And finally, also on the 9th, is Demon Gaze Extra on PS4 and Switch. So we got a healthy amount on our plate this week for people looking for an RPG to play. But I have a feeling a lot of people are going to be playing Endwalker for a while. Just chowing down on that content.
12 years. Just like FF11.
Right. And they're still making new content for 11. So.
Yep. It's crazy.
It's never going to end. But yeah, so I guess with that, we're just going to go ahead and move on to the gameplay. Okay, so we've covered the history, we've covered the story. It's on to the gameplay, and I think the gameplay is the reason why Final Fantasy II is seen as so divisive. It's considerably different from 1, and they never really did something like this again, as far as I know, in the core Final Fantasy series.
Well, no, it split off into its own thing,
right?
Really.
Saga.
It kept this kind of idea, went off into the sagas.
What's the saga? It's the Final Fantasy
saga.
So, Final Fantasy II, it's relatively unique in the FF series for not using a singular experience value to manage each character's growth. And instead, you earn experience points or analog from battles, each participant's stats developing organically depending on what actions they take during the battle. For example, characters who frequently use a particular type of weapon, such as a sword, bow, axe, etc., will become more adept at wielding weapons of that type, while also increasing their physical strength. And then similarly, characters who frequently cast a particular magic spell will learn to cast more powerful versions of it, so you can get up to like Fire 16 or some shit like that, as well as increasing their magical power. And then HP and MP increase depending on how much they get depleted. So if you get hit a lot in battle and go into critical health, you're going to earn a bigger HP bonus at the end of that battle. And a character who expends the majority of their magic points during a single battle may increase their maximum amount of MP. So how did you feel about this system, Bill?
Well, it's a bit crazy. I love it, to be honest with you. Like, it makes complete sense. And as much as we compare it to Saga, it's not. I mean, Saga is a lot more random than that. That actually kind of makes sense. That's more like an Oblivion or an Elder Scrolls type game, where if in an Elder Scrolls game like Skyrim, if you jump from the moment the game starts to the moment the game ends, you end up jumping over buildings by the end of it because your jump stat gets so high. Certainly, I know you can do that in Oblivion. So it's a lot more like that in style, and it's just nuts. But the whole thing, like with the HP and MP as well, is like it's going to punish you if you heal yourself up during the battle,
right?
Because it's based on how much health you lose during the battle.
It's kind of like a risk reward system.
Yeah, so if you cure yourself during the battle and then kill the enemy and come out with maximum health, like that's great for the next enemy, but you're going to lose out on the chance to get a boost. And I think as well, it's kind of, you would only really get a good chance for a HP boost if you were knocked down below halfway health.
Right.
But it was all about where your health starts during the battle and where it ends. And the same with the MP as well. So if you blow your entire magical load during a battle, you'd get a really good boost at the end of it for your MP.
Right. And
it's crazy. I like it though.
In the PSP version, well, I think every version but the NES version, they make it to where it kind of works more like a traditional leveling system than it seems at first, because as long as you're actually battling and facing enemies stronger than you, you're going to get the stat boost that you want for the most part.
Yeah, I feel like in those versions, they kind of balanced out the algorithm for how often you'll get boosts. So I think they kind of took away that thing of the healing thing, maybe, so that if you did get a couple of knocks during the battle, it clocked those up and then would give you the boost at the end, rather than being like, well, he's healed up.
Right.
He'll be all right for the next battle.
Yeah, and if it wasn't obvious, this is a turn-based classic FF battle system, so I think everybody knows how those work. But also in the original version, you could actually lose stats, right?
Yep.
And how big of a pain in the ass was that? I know you said you've played the NES version.
It's not too bad, because you kind of, as long as you were focusing on getting certain characters to certain points, you wouldn't lose enough stats for it to be worrying.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Did you try to develop your characters like differently from one another, or did you just do the same thing with all of them?
I think I did when I first played this on the NES, like fan translated back in the early 2000s. That's how I remember. I just remember just going through the game. I remember having to do a lot at the beginning and then just kind of just breezed my way through the rest of it. I think because I just decided, Firion's doing this, Maria's going to be at the back with a bow, Guy's going to have an axe, and whoever's in the false place is going to be my magic guy. So that sucked when Joseph joined.
Right.
But all the other ones were kind of all right with it. And it was just like, okay, well, Maria, you're at the back. You can have some white magic. I've never really dived into the black magic side of things. Again, same with the PSP. PSP was just so balanced. It just didn't matter what I did. It was just kind of just easy to get my way through it.
Yeah.
And keep my stats high.
I played Final Fantasy Record Keeper for years, almost every day. And so I already had it in my mind, like what Firion, Maria, and all them are good at. Like Firion's the swordsman and Maria's the bow mage. And so I just kind of pigeonholed them into what I knew they were good at in Record Keeper myself. And then, of course, I did the bonus dungeons, which made every battle a piece of cake outside of the bonus dungeons. I'll talk about that later. Don't let me forget. Anyway, moving on here. So HP and MP increases are cumulative, like Bill said, over one battle, and a substantial decrease in HP results in a better chance of receiving an HP boost, as well as a substantial decrease in MP resulting in a better chance of receiving an MP boost. And the other boosts come over the process of many battles. I found myself boosting support spells across the party to where like each character had a couple of useful support spells leveled. That way I could get them all up quickly in the first turn if I needed to. But other than that, I didn't level magic very much other than Maria.
It's that's very counteractive to how the developers wanted people to play the game. Now, obviously, over the years, the game's been broken down into the sum of all of its parts, and people now just like hitting themselves to level themselves up, which we'll talk about in a bit. But kind of like the initial goal from Kwazu and Nasa Gabelli, is it, the programmer, was kind of to be exactly that, what you said about Record Keeper. You're supposed to think, okay, I want Furion to have a sword, a shield, and to just go out there and kill stuff. And then I want Guy to be a black mage, so I'm going to give him all black magic. And I want Maria to be a white mage, so I'm going to give her white magic and work on these things. And it was kind of the idea exactly as you would do with FF1, where you choose a class and then work on that class throughout the whole game. That's kind of how they imagined the game in their head. But they made it super flexible in how you could do it, so that you could basically, you didn't have to choose straight away. You could play around with things at the beginning of the game and later on in the game. So actually, this isn't working for me. No more black mage, give Guy 2 axes, and I'm going to work on that. That's kind of how they envisaged the game. And it sounds like a really good idea, and it does work well if you can implement it well. But considering they bashed this out in less than a year, right. I'm not surprised it's kind of not as robust as maybe they would hope it was going to be.
Yeah, and I bet a lot of people just play to where like all their characters do the same thing.
Yeah, pretty much. Like you could just have an army of attackers, or you could have an army of white mages like you do in FF1. But everyone likes that in FF1, but no one likes it in FF2. Despite the fact you can do the same things, and they were basically the same idea in gameplay, but they just took a completely different approach of doing it.
Right.
But yeah, it just got broken.
It did upset me a little bit that the most powerful weapon in the game by far is a katana. So it's like I was halfway tempted to like just make everybody really good at the katana from the get-go, but I resisted that urge. It was just more fun to have
no one
different
uses
weapons.
Katanas. There's like 5 or 6 weapons you'll ever use in this.
Yeah, right.
And that's it. It's like rod, sword, axe, bow, maybe something else, maybe a spear.
Yeah. I see you got like a table of how different things level up here. Did you want to talk about any of those individually?
Yeah, it's just, I mean, this is mainly because we share these documents with our patrons. I thought it would be good for them as a sort of a visual view of what stats there are to level up. So attacking during a battle when hitting an enemy will increase your strength, giving you a higher hit percentage rate. So you probably noticed there was the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 thing that you'd get.
Yeah.
Maybe that was on the NES version. That's your hit percentage. So will you hit it 1 time or 10 times? And getting that hit percentage up means you're more likely to get the higher numbers. So it's really important to do that.
Oh, yeah.
HP, which is your endurance stat. So it is losing your HP during battle. Again, so this is all just very intuitive. So use of white magic is for your spirit levels. Use of black magic is your intelligence. MP reduction during battle will get you higher magic. Attacking with weapons will get you better accuracy, which means you'll be more likely to hit at a higher percentage rate again. Being the target of physical attacks will increase your evasion and agility, meaning you're more likely to hit first in battle and avoid attacks. And then finally, you'll be able to, being the target of magical attacks will increase your magical defense. So it was kind of cool. They did think out, they thought this out quite well. But yeah, it just didn't seem to gel.
Well, not in the original version anyway. I don't think I was aware that white magic and black magic were tied to a different stat.
Yeah, no, they are. You can't have like Maria be really good with white magic, give her a black magic spell like Ultima and expect it to work really well.
Right.
You have to make sure that she's been using fire since day one. But fire will still be better than Ultima because it's leveled up.
Yeah, I mean that was one annoying thing about leveling magic is because it's, for all intents and purposes, unless an enemy has a really high defense against physical attacks, then like it was just faster to attack your way through battles usually. But every now and then you're going to need magic, so you had to go out of your way to use the magic.
Yeah, and there's a lovely little glitch on the early versions of the game, which we'll talk about in a bit.
Don't even get me started on leveling.
We'll get there when we come to it. You just don't bother. There's just no point.
Yeah.
Minwoo, you shouldn't have died for Ultima, man.
Not at all.
Everything Minwoo do, don't do it for Ultima. I'm in a singing mood today.
Apparently.
I was planning to. I kind of ran out of time this week. I was planning to do a rendition of Bryan Adams singing that song, and I was going to change all the lyrics to be about Minwoo.
The main character of the game, the true hero.
Yes. The true hero of this game. I love Minwoo. Don't do it. Ultima's not worth dying for. Yeah, you can see I thought this through.
Shall we move on?
Sorry. Weapon and spell proficiency also determine how potent a character is with a certain type of weapon or magic. As can be seen in the above chart, the character's proficiency is shown for each weapon skill individually. Once the bar fills up and it reaches a value of 100, their weapon skill will go up. But it's not like hit something once and you get 1 point. So a character's level of proficiency with each 7 weapon types, as well as shields, can be viewed on the status screen. And also running away or being inflicted with statuses will not result in any bonuses. You have to make...
Is the status thing true in the PSP version as well?
I think it is. I think if you're poisoned or venomed or anything in the PSP version, you will not get your stat bonus at the end of the game.
Did you find it more useful to have one weapon and a shield equipped, or to just go dual wield on weapons?
Again, Guy, dual wield. He's just absolute powerhouse. His job is to just meet stuff up in a blender.
Right.
So I'd always give him 2 axes. But Furion, I'd always give a shield because it really helped with his agility.
Okay.
And things like that. There's a trick you can do with 2 shields to really quickly level your agility. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I know there is a trick for it.
It's interesting.
So yeah, and it's really interesting, the algorithm they use. It's something to do with your level of the weapon and the level of the enemies. And this is something I didn't know until recently, was that the enemies have different strength or rankings depending on who they are. But we'll get to that in a bit. I've got that a bit lower down in our review.
Okay.
But it's a really cool thing. But yeah, there's this little algorithm. So you'll hit something, and then based on this little sequence of events, it will say 1 point or 10 points per hit. So yeah, I always thought it was like, you need to hit something 100 times to level up, but it's not. It's a little bit more gentle.
Once you are way stronger than the enemies that you're fighting, that you just stop leveling altogether, because then it just feels like wasted time.
Yes, it does. There are a handful of bugs related to the advancement system were present in the release version, the most notable being the ability to cancel a previous issued command and still gain the stat increasing benefits of having performed the action. This was possible because the game's turn-based battle system gave the player the opportunity to input commands for all 4 party members at once, and at any point before the command for the final character lineup was issued, the player could return to the previous character and reissue a command. So effectively, yeah, you could do attack, cancel, attack, and you've got 2 loads of attack for each one. And so you can do that over and over again in the one battle, and then come out with a ridiculous stat increase for that. So that's particularly handy with magic.
Yeah, so I bet you could probably, if you exploited that bug, make the NES version your bitch, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's what people do. This is like the main the game breaking glitch. So you cast fire all on a mob of like 6 or 7 enemies on the screen, and that's going to be 6 uses of fire. Cancel out of it, use it again, another 6. So then you get 12, and then you just keep doing that. But that was only in the I think up to the PSP version of the game. So it was in the PSP version, not the PSP, sorry. It was in the PS1 version of the game still.
What about Game Boy Advance? Do you know?
I think that was the first one where they took it out.
Okay. Well, knowing that, maybe I will play the original one day, just to make that much less of a headache.
Don't do it. You've survived the PSP version. That's all you need, Scott.
I'm glad you think so. Okay, so since many stats, such as weapons and magic spell proficiency, were based on how many times a particular command was used in battle, a little patience meant it was possible to quickly advance in proficiencies in the space of a single battle round. And then there was a similar problem with the way hit point increases were granted, because it allowed characters to attack members of their own party to increase their maximum HP. So these problems were replicated in the Wonder Swan Color and the PlayStation 1 ports. And then the Game Boy Advance Dawn of Souls remake eliminated the command cancel bug, as well as the hit point increase trick. There was also other various improvements to the GBA version, including regular maximum HP increases outside of those gained, as we talked about previously, and that decreased the game's difficulty by a large amount from what the original versions were. Yeah. So this is where the infamous hit yourself thing comes from. Because in the original versions, you could attack your own party members over and over, and that was the quickest way to get their health up, right?
Yes, because you do more damage than an enemy, and you could get, you could go in. So you'd only want to do this when you're right next to an inn, basically. Come out of the inn, get into a fight, hit yourself until you go right down to your critical HP, get a really good HP boost, go back into the inn. But yeah, because sometimes you'll be up against a mob of 6 and they'll only attack one character in your team. And it's just like, but they're attacking him and they're only doing 5 damage. And so it's just like, I'm going to be here forever. Or I can hit him with Guy. Guy will take him down in 1 hit, almost to death.
Right.
But then also the counteracting to that is that then Guy is getting boosts, or whatever character you used. They are getting boosts for hitting you. So eventually they get to the point where they one-shot you.
Right.
So you kind of got to pace yourself out a little bit. Start using white magic for a bit with Guy and it'll bring your stats down.
It's kind of really interesting too, because I think attacking yourself is one thing that a lot of the fans of this series know about FF2, and it's effectively not really a thing in every modern version. I mean, the only reason you would go back to play the NES version, I think, would be just for masochistic purposes, I guess. And
that's the only reason I go to it.
Yeah, when there's
I don't
these
want to punish
improved
myself.
versions of the game out there, like I'd really, it didn't blow my pants off, but I thought that this was a decent at worst game. So it's just interesting.
It really is. It's a really, really decent game if you play one of the more original, the newer versions.
Right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the original does suffer from being NES hard as balls. It's ridiculous. Like me and you have been playing Zelda 2 a bit recently. Like, it's the NES games are just hard. Even the original Zelda. Like, if you don't use a guide, it's just like that game is just like you'd have to spend so long playing that game to work out how to get around it. But yeah, it's just NES hard. That's all.
I'm sad I have to finally play Palace 6 now. Since you released that this week, finally.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Just in time for me to forget how to play again, probably.
Yep. I like that bit in your Palace 5 submission. I couldn't remember how to play the bloody game. I had to relearn it. Anyway, moving on. So battle parties can consist up to 4 characters. 3 are present throughout the entire game, with the 4th role rotating between various victims of death. Final Fantasy II was the first game in the series to allow a friendly character to be placed in the back row, which is very handy when you give Maria a bow. During battles to make them immune to most physical attacks. But it's still harmed with bows and magical attacks. Enemies can be arranged in up to 4 rows of 2 foes each for a maximum of 8 opponents on the screen. The player character's physical attacks can only target enemies in the frontmost occupied row. So you can't attack people in the back row from the front until you've cleared out the front row. Again, keeping that sort of thing in from Final Fantasy 1, the American football thing. You can't get to the back ones until you smashed your way through the front guys.
Right.
I think Corey will like that, won't he? Corey understands football.
Yeah. I mean, I understand it.
I don't. I understand soccer. Directly behind it, requiring closer enemies to be dispatched before the further enemies can be targeted with physical attacks. And also, so status ailments. I think we've already briefly mentioned this. There are lots of status ailments in this, which aren't like they still haven't kind of standardized the Final Fantasy status ailments at this point. Yeah. So although there are a lot of ones that we'll recognize, there's kind of 2 versions of each, and there's a temporary version and a permanent version. So the temporary version will finish once you end a battle. The permanent one will then follow you on the world map into the next battle. So I think Venom is being poisoned in battle temporarily, but being poisoned is being poisoned permanently until you cure yourself. So they kind of had that little sort of nugget in this game as well. And again, if you had a status ailment at the end of a fight, and if you were poisoned and forgot to cure yourself, you're going to be going through battle after battle and not getting any experience boosts.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but anytime a battle started and like there were 8 enemies on screen, I'm like, Jesus Christ, I'm going to be here forever.
It's going to take so long. I know, but that's the advantage of having a black mage who's well leveled with fire or something, because then it's just like, fire all!
Yeah.
Fire I wish 12 that, all, and they'd all disappear in one hit. I say one hit, it'll go...
yeah, but then you typically only have one person that's good with magic. Well, I mean, depending on how you play. I think that since you can only have 4 characters, they should only be able to have 4 monsters. So, so was this the first game in the series then, I guess, to introduce the front row, back row system?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I guess it wasn't in 1, huh? And then that's something they've kept since then.
It wasn't in 1 for your characters.
Right.
I believe it was still in 1 for the enemies, and then they introduced it for you. So yeah, if you stick a character in the back row, they are then pretty much immune from physical attacks because the enemies can't hit them. They can only hit them with magical attacks.
Right. Okay.
So it's really handy for putting your weak mages in the back row.
Well, moving on here. One other important element to mention for FF2 is the battle rank. So every enemy type in the game has a static rank value, which ranges from 1 to 7. And you can see that in the game's bestiary. And at the beginning of combat, the rank of the enemies you face is averaged, which determines the rank of the battle. And so the higher your rank, the faster your weapon and spell proficiencies will increase. So Furion and company do not have a rank. Only monsters in the bestiary do. And then battle rank also doesn't affect most stat growth with a few exceptions. But it does affect weapon proficiency, spell proficiency, evasion, and magic evasion, which kind of goes to what I was saying earlier, that it gets annoying that once you start getting to a certain point in your stats, rank 1 battles are going to do absolutely nothing for you. It's just wasting time, effectively just making it a useless random encounter at that point.
Yeah. And most of the time as well, when you encounter, say, 8 enemies, like we mentioned a minute ago, they're trash mobs. They're all going to be rank 1. So you're not going to get much of an increase. Whereas, on the other hand, if you encounter a Gigas who takes up half the screen, he's going to have quite a high rank.
If I never see a Gigas again, or not a Gigas, a Goblin again, it's going to be too soon. Because with those bonus dungeons, I was walking around the world map a lot to get from point to point. But we'll talk about that in a bit.
So effectively, the high rank, the faster your proficiencies will increase. Using weapons with low proficiencies against high rank enemies will power them up quickly. However, using highly proficient weapons against low rank enemies will probably not power up at all. How much a weapon proficiency powers up depends on the rank of the battle, as well as how many times it is used.
Gotcha. So that's about it for the battle system. Another unique thing that they introduced in this game and then never used again, as far as I'm aware. So when you're talking to the NPCs outside of battle, you can learn special words or phrases. It's like highlighted in their text, signifying that you can learn it. So that's about it for the battle system. There is like one more really unique gameplay mechanic outside of battles that they introduced for FF2, and they never really brought it back. And it's called it's like the ask and learn secret words, special words mechanic. So how it works is you'll be talking to an NPC, and then like one little key word in their dialogue will be highlighted, and at that point you can either choose to ask more information or you can learn that keyword. And then once you've learned it, you can use it elsewhere in the story to like advance the plot. Like, for example, the first real thing with this is you learn the key term Wild Rose from Princess Hilda. Wild Rose. And then you use it at a bar in, Finn? And then that's when the bartender knows you're with the rebellion resistance, and that's when you get to go downstairs and meet the dying Scott. Not me, Scott the character. And so there's a bunch of these, and it's kind of an interesting mechanic, but the thing is, for me, it's like once you have a certain amount of terms, it becomes kind of vague, like what words you're supposed to learn and use them on who. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, sometimes you just end up trawling through the menu, just selecting every word, and hopefully one of these work. But especially for you, because you had you learned all the extra random words for the bonus dungeon.
Oh yeah, so with the
which
bonus
have
dungeons,
no effect in game.
Right? That you learn like I don't know, like 30, maybe 40, something like that, more terms, and so that can really muck things up too. Once you get back to the story, you just got to kind of remember which ones you learned outside of those dungeons, or use a guide. But it was an interesting way, I guess. They tried to spice up the stuff outside of battle, but in the end, it ends up just being kind of an annoying system, I think.
Yeah, it's just it's arbitrary, isn't it? It's just like in FF1, you just talk to the character and the next bit of the gameplay would happen. Whereas this one makes you select something to trigger the next bit. So it's just like, There's really no need for this.
It's almost like an early version of like a D&D type campaign, or like a conversation selector, like Mass Effect or something, but obviously not that robust. Other than that, outside of battle, everything's pretty standard. You explore towns and dungeons. There aren't really any puzzles that I can think of in the dungeons, so it's literally just getting from the beginning of the dungeon to the end and fighting battles along the way. There's shops and inns in the towns. One thing that's kind of bullshit.
The innkeepers are evil.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. A carryover from FF1, I think, is that they charge you more based on how damaged you are. So if you make it to town on death's door, they're going to be like, it looks like you kind of really need an inn. How bad do you need this inn? How much money you got?
Well, you look like you're going to bleed all over my sheets.
Yeah.
They're Egyptian cotton, so I'm going to charge you extra for that.
I'm going to have to buy new bed sheets. There is still the sanctuaries from FF1 where you have to go there to revive characters. That's free though, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
But you say it's free. You only revive with 1 HP, so then you have to go to the inn.
Yeah. You can buy items at the shops, and at the beginning of the game, you don't really have enough money. But then once you've done a couple of bonus dungeons, if you're me, you can afford everything. So I can't really think of anything else to say about the actual overworld gameplay or anything. Can you?
No, not really. I mean, I've put a little note in here that the victory music is the same music that plays when you win a race in Chocobo Racing on FF7.
I thought so. And when I heard that, I was like, is that literally pulled directly from? So
yeah, I think it's a callback. It's one of those things when you're playing an older Final Fantasy game, you see something, it's just like, that game in the future calls back to this.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So then I'd be remiss to not talk about the bonus dungeons now before we finish up this discussion. For me, Final Fantasy II was basically bonus dungeon the game. I don't remember how many hours I got into the game by the time I completed it, but it was like, I want to say 40 or 50. And FF2, the plot alone is not a long game. So I'll just go over how they work real quick. So there's 3 bonus dungeons scattered across the land. And once you get there, you tell the portals to each floor one of the key terms. And which key terms you use affects what prize you get after you've cleared all 3 of the dungeons. And it also affects what floor you do next. So if you use a certain combination of words and then you complete the 4th bonus dungeon, you get like Therian's ultimate weapon. And then you use a different combination of words to get through the dungeons, and then you'll get Maria's ultimate weapon, and so on and so on. And there's one of these for every character, including the guest characters. So, and then you can also get like the ultimate life magic and the ultimate destroy magic. So if you go for all of this shit, there's like 9 characters total or something. Let's see, Theria, Maria, 9-ish, and then another time or 2 for the bonus spells. And there's plenty of floors, and each floor a lot of the times has like some kind of unique mechanic to it. Like there's one where you have to walk along invisible paths, and there's one where the light will slowly fade in and out. And if you this just sounds all horrific. Right. And in the meantime, you're usually going in with a weak character to get their ultimate weapon, fighting all these monsters. The first couple of times you go through these bonus dungeons, if you do it early on, as soon as you can, it really is quite a challenge. On the plus side, by the time you get through, all 4 bonus dungeons, the characters are powerful. Whereas a lot of times when they first join you, they're pretty weak, such as Gordon. But by the time I did the bonus dungeons, Gordon was kind of a force to be reckoned with.
Never. I won't believe it.
Yeah. And so Frost, actually, who's in chat right now, he went through these bonus dungeons too, and he's the one that kind of taught me how to do them, because it's really hard to wrap your mind around how they work exactly. There's like a point system behind it, how many key terms you use and what key terms and what characters. So yeah, I would not, if you're not having trouble with the game, honestly, I would not recommend doing these. You're just torturing yourself, basically.
I didn't even, when I did this version, I didn't realize they existed.
Yeah. Well, it also makes me wonder though, because like I said, for Solo Rebirth, we I had the ultimate weapons from these bonus dungeons for Minwu, Joseph, and Ricard, and then I still had trouble in Solo Rebirth. So I wonder how much trouble I would have been in if I hadn't done those bonus dungeons for them.
You probably wouldn't have survived.
Yeah.
It would
I
take it
will
even longer
say,
to defeat the ultimate weapon.
yeah. Oh, and you also get some really good equipment drops through these. Like, there's you can get, I forget what it's called. It's like a Sage's staff that is like OPAF for the early game that you can put on the characters. That might not be the right name, but it's certainly a good way to power up. And I had to say, I do like the way these bonus dungeons are better than the ones in FF1. I still hate the FF1 bonus dungeons. But these are at least doable. They just take time, and you have to like understand how they work. And Frost in the chat says they take forever, and if you weren't using a guide, the bonus dungeons would take like 60 hours. Yeah. I mean, I would say my time spent with FF2 is like 90% bonus dungeons, 10% main game. So honestly, the fact that the Pixel Remaster cut them out is probably a plus for the Pixel Remasters for me.
Yeah, definitely. I think my
Completionists.
PSP thing's like 22 hours, something like that, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, I wish I'll check when we go over the ratings. My PSP's somewhere around here, but yeah. I guess that's all I got to say about the bonus dungeon. Frost says the mage staff is like 4 times stronger than the most powerful weapons you can get in the story at the time. So you can get OPAF really early on if you so choose. Of course, I didn't want Firion to get super strong with a staff. I wanted him to have a sword, so that was another thing. Yeah, I guess that's really it for gameplay. Are we forgetting anything?
No, I think that's it.
What were your like overall thoughts about everything with the gameplay?
I think it was a clever system, and I think had they had a bit more time to work on the game, they probably could have fleshed it out better. It's also one of those situations as well where I feel like it gets a bad rap because it never came to the West originally.
Yeah.
Like I remember when I went back and played these games, knowing nothing about them, and like FF1 hadn't really had an NES release in Europe either. So I remember playing the game on my PC in the 2000s and just being like, I remember having more trouble with FF1 than FF2. And I remember not enjoying FF1 as much. So I wonder if it would be more loved had it have come out over here originally.
Maybe.
I wonder if people would have picked it up and be like, hey, this game's cool. Look at all this weird stuff I can do.
Yeah,
I could really explore
until
this.
the PS1 version, everybody that played FF2 was playing the fan translation, which had all the original wonky mechanics, but they were probably playing it at a time where they expected more from their RPGs.
Yeah, exactly. Especially from the Final Fantasy series. So, yeah, I always wonder if it had been more loved if it had come out over here earlier. A bit like FF3. No one seems to care for FF3 over here, but it's like one of the favorite ones in Japan.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
So I always wonder, had it have come out, would people feel differently about the game? And I think they would, because again, the developers were thinking to themselves, the replay value is that someone's going to come through here one day and think, actually, I'm going to train up Firion to use a katana.
Right.
And then they're going to find the balls out weapon in the game.
Right, yeah.
Or I'm going to go through this game and everyone's going to use bows. I'm going to sit in the back row. This is like, don't do it. But
That's one
you
way.
could. That's where they imagine the replay value. Like with FF1, they imagine people picking different teams, which is what they did.
Yeah, I don't know that
So,
I'll
yeah,
ever
I think-
replay FF2, but if I did, I would probably try to do things completely different.
Yeah, I would too. I would only level Ultima
That's
and
one
see what it's
strategy.
like at level 16.
I don't think there's any reason to talk about gameplay for Solar Rebirth because it's the same thing, just different characters.
Yeah, it's just a bit of bonus story, flip dungeon.
Yeah,
It's cool.
I like the gameplay of FF2. I was surprised by how much I did enjoy the game. I'm leaving the bonus dungeons out of it. I'm thinking that the game was really fun to play. With the story, I enjoyed it a lot more than FF1 in that regard. Oh, Frost says, don't forget to talk about the slide puzzle game for the Masamune with the toad spell at 16. So that's how you get the strongest katana. If you're on the snowmobile, you can do like a code, just like the thing from FF1, and it brings up a sliding puzzle mini game, or it's a matching puzzle where there's a bunch of character tiles and you have to pick the two and try to like memory match it, and it gives you a reward based on how many misses you get. And so once you get
you have to have Toad at level 16.
Yeah. So once you get Toad at level 16, they change all the character portraits to their frog portraits, and so they're a lot harder to tell apart. I think Guy and Joseph's Toad portraits are just like a slightly different shade of brown. It's really hard to tell. So what I ended up doing is I had like a spiral notebook, and there's only 32 possible combinations they can give you. And so I just I drew out like every combination. And so once it looped back to the first combination, I was able to, cheat and get it right the first time. So,
okay.
Yeah, it's the best way to do it. But yeah.
And it can also be found in a hidden room on the top floor of Pandemonium, according to Frost.
Yeah, but then you want one for everybody, though. But yeah, I liked the gameplay, and actually I liked playing FF2 a lot more than I thought I did. If I was counting the bonus dungeons in there, my gameplay rating that we'll get to shortly would be a lot lower. But I feel like that's unfair to dock it that much on. I enjoyed it. So I guess that's probably it about the gameplay. You ready to move on to our ratings?
Absolutely. Give me a blood sword. I'm ready.
Okay, so our categories today will be story, combat, non-combat, visuals, audio, overall feel, our bonus category, the final boss, and yeah, so we're doing all our categories today, and we're starting off with story. Kick us off, Bill.
So, story. I mean, we've come a long way since FF1, and it is a good story, even though if gameplay-wise it's not implemented that well, because it is Star Wars. And so if I rated it badly, I'll be rating Star Wars badly. And Emperor Matthias is such an intriguing antagonist as well. He's just such a bastard. I'm going to give it a 7.
Okay. I enjoyed the story. Sure, it's got some... there's not too much special to it, but I think it's a huge step up from FF1. And like I think we mentioned this last episode, I think it's better than FF3's story as well. And this game came out in 1988. I really don't have many troubles with the story. I think, like you said, Matthias is an interesting villain from the fact that he, conquers heaven and hell. There's the bait and switch with Leon. They actually had character deaths, which I don't think were common back then in video games. Maybe not being handled that well. I think I'm going to give the story an 8. Nice. So combat.
This is a difficult one because the NES version is too hard and the PSP version is too easy. So hopefully the Pixel remaster is a nice middle ground. But I like the idea of what they tried, and I think they did a reasonable job with the time they had. But lands a bit flat. I'm going to say a 5. Don't really think it's a huge improvement over FF1. So
I'm surprised you went that way, because after all your raving about the stat system and the leveling up with the Saga and all that.
Like I say, Saga handles it even more differently. And I don't particularly love the Saga leveling system. I'm just, after 100 hours playing Saga Frontier, because that took me over 100 hours to beat, by the way. I describe it as Stockholm syndrome. I love the game, but because
Gotcha.
I'm in love with my captor.
Okay. Well, I'm going to be a little bit kinder. I'm going to give it a 7. I appreciate that they tried to do something different from FF1, and it's just the way the leveling up works. It can get a little bit of a slog at times, and the difficulty is there, especially if you don't grind. I think even after I did the bonus dungeons, there's like in Deist, the hill guy, I guess, or something. I'm like, wow, these guys are still wrecking me. And yeah, I like that you can kind of develop your characters however you want to. I don't really have too many complaints about the combat themselves. So yeah, a 7 from me. And non-combat.
I'm gonna go 6. I feel like it's a pretty standard fare going on from Final Fantasy 1.
Okay, yeah. I'll go a 6 as well, because I don't like the keyword system, and other than that, there's not a lot going on from here. And this is also where I'm gonna like take away a point or two for the bonus dungeons on my end. So, so yeah, not nothing to write home about here for the non-combat.
But visually, I'm going to go quite high on this. I'm going to give it an 8 because NES-wise, I think it's still really good looking for what it is on the NES for a 1988 game. You know, it's not Super Mario Brothers 3, but then that came out in the 90s. So I'm going to give it an 8 for what they tried. And also the PSP version is just gorgeous. If this was the PSP version alone, it would definitely get a 9 from me.
Yeah, it's hard to judge based on that. I mean, if I was going off the Pixel remaster, I'd give it like a 5. But
yeah,
the PSP
what's all this
version,
wasted space? My character's like 2 pixels high.
yeah, negative space.
I've got
It's
500
weird.
pixels on the screen.
Let's see. I actually just pulled up the Final Fantasy 1 review we did, and it looks like I gave visuals an 8 on that. So I believe I will stick with that, an 8 from me as well. And then that brings us to the audio.
Audio's a absolutely 9. It's a Final Fantasy game. These tracks are bangers. Even the ones they didn't use were bangers. Like,
Right.
in fact, I'm gonna put in unused battle free, the NES version.
Yeah, since we split this into 2 parts, you got to find more music.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna use one of the unused tracks from the NES version. All the other music we've used so far has been from the PSP version, but I'm gonna stick that one in there just so everyone could be like, "Shit, they didn't use that one. That's a banger."
I'll give it an 8. I think the FF2 soundtrack is really good, especially the battle music. The boss themes in particular are bangers. I like the town theme. I like most of the dungeon themes. The only one that I really hate, and it's sad because you hear it a lot, is the Empire theme.
Oh,
it's so repetitive. Yeah. And I know it's like kind of seen as like a song that everybody remembers from the game, which is unfortunate. And then you also got the Rebellion theme, which is really nice.
I didn't really like either of those 2 themes, but I thought the other stuff was just absolute top tier.
Yeah,
Loved it.
brings,
Except the Choco music, it didn't have the second bar.
Yeah, and Frost says the Overworld theme may be the best NES track. Period. Yeah, it is nice. The only thing is, I wish they had made it to where it didn't start over every time you have a battle.
No, Frost. Sorry, the Moon theme from DuckTales, the game, is the best NES music ever made.
That's a good point.
There's no question on that. I'm sorry.
Okay, and then our last category is overall feel.
I like this game. I like this game a lot. I'm going to give it a 8.
Okay. For me, I am going to give it a 7 or an 8. I think I'm going to give it a 7.
What would you give it without the bonus dungeon?
Without the bonus dungeons, I would probably give it an 8. The thing is, I think if it hadn't been for the bonus dungeons, I would have actually struggled with the difficulty curve of the main story. And then I would have had to do a bunch of grinding. So it's like a catch-22 kind of for me. But alas, I did like the game. 7's a good score. So I'm right on the edge between a 7 and an 8. So, and then our final category. Oh, did you have something to say?
Yeah. No, I was going to say for the final boss. I was going to move on to the next category.
Okay,
while,
final boss.
While you're doing some maths in the background.
Yes. Stall, Bill, stall.
Scott Stamos. So, the Emperor, the final boss. The final boss was really good in this game. I really liked Emperor Matthias as a protagonist, antagonist, whatever you want to call him. He was really good. He was completely evil. Like the whole thing with capturing Hilda and then basically putting her up as a prize if you can beat a behemoth, like genius. Like I just imagine Borgen like being like, how can I beat this behemoth?
Yeah.
I want a princess for tonight. And yeah, I really like how just dastardly he is as a character. And also I found the end fight really fun, and his sprite is amazing as well. Both sprites at the end of the game and at the end of Solar Rebirth, I thought they were fantastic sort of parallels of each other. So I'm going to give the final boss a 9.
All right. I do remember, despite being so over leveled, the Emperor did still put up a fight, if I remember correctly. No, he wasn't hard or anything, but again, I was over OP as fuck. And
there's no Neo X death.
Yeah, I like the meteors. Like you said, I like the designs, especially of the Light Emperor. I thought that he looks really cool and a cool design. I guess I'll go an 8 here as well. Which brings us to our final ratings. Do you want to read yours, Bill?
Yep, so I gave it a 7 for story, a 5 for combat, 6 for non-combat, 8 for visuals, 9 for audio, 8 overall feel. Bonus category, gave it a 9 for the final boss, which gives me a subtotal of 43 out of 60, which is a 72% from me.
How do you feel about that? Is that about right for you?
I think that's fair. I think that's perfectly fair, to be honest.
Okay. I gave story an 8, combat a 7, non-combat a 6, visuals an 8, audio an 8, and overall feel a 7. And the final boss category, an 8, which brings my subtotal to a 44 out of 60, only 1 point higher than Bill's, despite our ratings varying in different categories.
You rated Final Fantasy 2 higher than me.
I like Final Fantasy 2. I liked it more than I thought I was going to. So
I know. See, everyone thinks I'm the one who blows all these terrible games, but no, it's Scott.
Yeah. So yeah, 44 out of 60, which brings my total to 73%. Again, only 1 point higher than Bill. Which brings the official RPG After Your score for Final Fantasy II to a 73%. Later reused in FF7. So really it's a 72.5%.
That's so serendipitous.
Yeah.
I love that.
I think 73% is probably about right for this game. And I think it's higher than a lot of people or companies would give this game. So
yeah, so I mean that's actually the same rating we gave Final Fantasy.
Oh really?
Same rate, yeah, 73%.
That's interesting.
Final Fantasy and Nier Automata. So it's slightly higher rated than Final Fantasy 8.
I mean,
by about 0.5%.
That's interesting. So on Final Fantasy 1,
74% is what's 74%? We've got Link's Awakening, Rise of the Tomb Raider, and Resident Evil 3.
Oh, thanks for doing that. I'm glad you had that ready. And then I'll also put in post right now what the RPG scale of it. How much of an RPG was Final Fantasy 2? Hey guys, what's up? It's Scott here, coming to you from the future. Just wanted to give you the RPG scale rating. For those that don't know, I've developed a complex formula that determines how much of an RPG a video game is. Final Fantasy II scored a 270, which ties it with Final Fantasy 1. It was interesting because they actually had different ratings because Final Fantasy 1 has a job system, but Final Fantasy 2 has a complex equipment system. And they each like the other, so they ended up tying anyway. That puts it right above Secret of Mana at 230 points, and right below Persona 5 Royal, Final Fantasy 8, and World of Final Fantasy for how much of an RPG it is. Just to clarify, just for the purposes of this show, a 100 classifies it as an RPG. So it's definitely an RPG. Also, on another note, I did boot up my PSP. So my final clear time for Final Fantasy II was 76 hours and 1 minute. So yeah, that's how much the bonus dungeon can tack on to this game. And my Solar Rebirth clear was an additional 6 hours and 20 minutes. So yeah. All right, back to the show. Okay, but that's our ratings. And yeah, just as an aside, you gave Final Fantasy 1 a 75, and I gave it a 70. So we kind of flipped positions a little bit here as to which one we
Oh
liked
wow,
more.
that's strange because I do like Final Fantasy 2 more than 1.
Maybe you were just in a better mood that day, or maybe you're in a bad mood today.
Probably.
But moving on to some of the listener feedback we got here.
So, Kylie Kane from the Verzian Chronicles podcast. Check them out. They've got such lovely audio. I'm so jealous of their mic. They asked, who was your favorite death? So, who's yours, Scott?
Let me think. So we've got Joseph, we've got Ricard, we've got Scott, Sid. Who else dies? Am I forgetting somebody?
Ricard, Joseph, Scott, Gordon.
Layla and Gordon survive. So
What? Gordon? No.
I'd probably go with. I want to say Joseph, but actually, I thought the scene with Scott was pretty good too. Where even though you barely know him,
I was going to say Scott. Joseph is like cool because you get to tell his daughter afterwards. Like, not that sounds really terrible. I mean, it's like because it's impactful. But yeah, I really like Scott's thing with the ring and telling you not to tell Hilda that he loves her.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, fuck, we forgot Minwoo, of course. I don't like Minwoo's death because he sacrificed himself for that stupid spell that was useless.
It's not worth dying for.
Moving on, next we
Tell
got
you Minwoo.
ROB,
Go on, girl.
who says, did you enjoy beating yourself up to raise your stats? I played the PSP version, so that wasn't a thing for me.
And I've never really...
Yeah.
No, I hate it. It's like it ruins the game, to be honest with you.
And that's
it's
not
like
how you
can
played
spend all
even
that
on the
time.
NES version, right?
Yep. No,
Right.
don't even bother on the NES version. I'll do it occasionally on the NES version if I feel it's needed, but it's just like it's so time consuming. It's just not needed.
Right.
Takes you out of the game.
He continues on here, but as a quick thought, I will say this FF2 is the bottom of my list in the series. The story never felt compelling. I did not care for the keyword learning system. I did not care for only having access to 2 items in a battle, but it all stems back to the leveling system, which my hatred for may have unfairly seeped over to other parts of this game. But hey, it gave us Chocobos and Sid, so some points for that. I think ROB's opinion is the one that you always hear from people that have played FF2 across the series generally.
Yeah. I forgot about the 2 item thing.
Yeah.
So next up from Frost, do you feel bad for playing the easy mode PSP version? For me, I still recommend that version to people. It's just more fun.
A little bit, because I know some of you bitches will say I didn't really beat FF2. But
you beat the FF2 bonus dungeons. That's
true. I'd say that I get points for that.
And what about why are the bonus dungeons so terrible? Asks Frost.
I feel like they when these new editions of the game, they have to add something for people that have already played it before, but they don't want to spend a lot of time and resources on it. So Solar Rebirth was a cool addition, but the bonus dungeons are absolutely terrible. They're terrible here. I remember the ones in 4 weren't great as well, if I remember right. And yeah, so I don't know. It's just bad design, I guess.
Then he says, having played both the PSP and original versions of the game, I will say the PSP version was actually decently enjoyable due to many quality of life improvements. Easier leveling, stats don't go down, brilliant. Access to more items in battles, no magic casting penalty for wearing armor. I forgot about that. And shields, and I also dig the new battle tracks.
Oh yeah,
the original is just they're absolute bangers. The original is just a slog, and by far my most disliked Final Fantasy. But you could make up for playing it along with Bill and die on the 7th Saga. I forgot about that.
Is that a game? Like the 7th Saga? Is that one of the Saga games?
Yeah, the 7th Saga is a game. It's not a Saga game.
Oh, okay.
But it's something Frost nominated, and it's actually quite soon on the list. Okay. And it's known for its difficulty.
Alrighty then.
So I'll leave it at that. So it's 3 games away.
Gotcha. Moving on, Mini BT says, for Scott specifically, how did the characters differ from the opinions you had on them from Record Keeper? That's an interesting question because, like I said earlier, I kind of pigeonholed my character growth into fitting more like what they were like in Record Keeper, their roles in that. Honestly, I'd already seen a lot of, or like kind of knew the story of FF2, so I already kind of knew what the characters were like. And, in Record Keeper, they actually cover a lot of the story of FF2. So a lot of the story was already spoiled for me. And so I didn't really get a chance to form my own opinions on the characters that were different from what they actually were. Nothing was a surprise.
And so finally from Disa, who is going to give this some love. I know Disa loves FF2. I usually get one black sheep answer every time she posts about this game on Twitter. But she really likes it. I liked Battle System 2, an early version of what Saga became. I've played through all the NES version and PSP and found them both very enjoyable in different ways. I'm now playing through the Pixel Remaster, and it ranks right up there for me for the top FFs along with Final Fantasy 1.
Lisa just likes her a good, straightforward RPG without all the frills and fluffs.
Yep, definitely.
I wish we had her rating here. I know I saw her do a review at one point.
Probably. I should have looked that up.
Oh, well.
I know her special hashtag that she uses for those.
Yeah. But yeah, that's all the listener feedback that we have. And so any final thoughts on FF2?
I would say it's definitely not as bad as people think. Stay away from hitting yourself in the face. Stay away from the NES version. Just grab yourself a copy of the PSP version if you can. I imagine it's probably quite expensive these days. I feel very lucky to have my old copy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd like to check out the Pixel Remaster, because if it's still balanced like the PSP version, but with no bonus dungeons, that's going to be a fantastic game. Just with teeny tiny sprites. Lots and lots of screen.
Again, I liked it more than I thought it was going to, for sure. And although it's not anywhere close to one of my favorite Final Fantasies, I did enjoy my time with it for the most part, outside of the bonus dungeons.
I knew you would. I remember you dreading it, and I was going to be like, I think you're going to enjoy this. You picked up the PSP, so...
Honestly, I'm dreading FF3, which I'll be starting before too long. So
Don't dread it. Are you playing the... have you decided on which version you're going to play? Come on.
Probably the 3D version, even though it's got the job sickness. I mean, I might still change my mind, but we'll see. We'll see.
Because the job sickness is slightly different to the job sickness in the NES version. But I will admit, I'm going to play along with you on that without the job sickness on the Pixel Remaster.
That'll be interesting, because then we'll both have like differing impressions and views of the game.
Yeah, I've always wanted to replay the NES version, because I never had a good translation of it when I was younger, so I couldn't get past the dwarf thing. I didn't know you had to mini yourself.
Oh right, yeah.
So it would be interesting to do that. But yeah, in the original NES version of Final Fantasy III, you had to gain, I think it's called CP points during battle, and then you'd save them up, and then certain jobs would cost certain amounts of CP points to change to that job. So you kind of had that points penalty. So you had to build up your points to change jobs. Whereas in the remake version you're playing, it's called job sickness, because when you change jobs, you're literally like as weak as a toddler until you've done X amount of battles to build up your job again. It's really weird.
Yeah, it'll be interesting seeing how FF3 turns out, and for sure I am looking forward to that. And like I said, I'm glad I played FF2. It was a fun time. I'm booting up my PSP real quick to see. Oh, it's dead. Never mind. That was pointless. Sorry about that.
But when you get to the final dungeon of that game, if you want some advice, I'm here for you.
Gotcha. Cool.
I've got a very specific method that makes that game a lot easier at the end.
Yep. Okay. Well, with all that out of the way, I guess we can just go ahead and move on.
Yo, this is Corey with The World is My Burrito podcast, aka Twimby, a personal project where I educate my listeners as I dive into various pop culture topics that alter the world around them, yet somehow fell to the wayside. Do you know who almost single-handedly created the manga industry of today? Which major world event changed the horror film industry as a whole? How did comics affect the world's perception of nuclear energy? Journey with me to learn some random stuff.
All right, and now that we got Bill the hell out of here, I am letting Rich enter the episode. Rich, how's it going, man?
It's going good. Glad to be back. Getting rid of that British guy.
Yeah, you managed to sneak onto the FF2 review somehow, after all.
That's right.
But should we go ahead and get the RPG club going, dude?
Yeah, let's do this.
All right, everyone, quiet down. All rise. We're here today to bring to order the next session of the RPG Club. All in favor? All opposed? And looks like the ayes have it. Then let the RPG Club commence!
Alrighty, so this is the fourth and final section of the Mass Effect RPG Club. The goal of this checkpoint was to complete the game, and that was due by Sunday, November 28th, 2021, which is actually the day of this recording. So, I hope everybody made it. What about you, Rich?
I made it. And I do have to say, I'm a little disappointed in our listeners thinking that I won't finish checkpoints.
Well, you missed one last
finish
week.
games.
Or last
I missed
section.
one.
Yeah.
I missed one about every game, but I do finish them. So,
yeah. Except for Wild
shame
Arms.
Everybody. Huh?
Except for Wild Arms.
Okay, fuck that game.
I forget. Never forget. Pepperidge Farm remembers, and so does Scott.
Yes. Okay, so I missed one.
Yeah, that's okay.
But I finished. It's Colin gets me every time. He always gives me jabs at me that I don't finish games, which is he's not all wrong.
Well,
so
next week you and I will catch up on what games you've been playing lately.
That's right.
But yeah, so before we get down and dirty into this, do you got like some overall thoughts on this section?
I was pleasantly surprised towards the end of it how I kind of liked the wrapping up the story. But yeah, I mean it was okay. It doesn't blow my socks away like how I figured it would because the way people talked about it so much.
Yeah. I mean, out of all the segments, all four segments, this story-wise, this section was definitely the strongest. Like things heated up, things came to a climax, you got some resolutions to certain plot points and all that, and it felt like a lot of the decisions you were making actually mattered, and they do. So I kind of wish that they had managed to have this kind of, I don't know what the right word is, this forward momentum or something throughout the entire game, because I think we've been complaining in the past sections that it's just kind of not really living up to what we were hoping the game would be story-wise.
Yeah.
But to be fair, I have heard that it gets better in Mass Effect 2 and 3. So we'll see. So this section covered Virmire, the Citadel lockdown, Ilos, and then like the final section back at the Citadel. So I guess we'll just start up here on Virmire.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, I would say Virmire was probably the prettiest world in the game. Like very luscious tropical locales. It was a nice change of pace from like a lot of the other more industrial, rusty-looking areas we've been to so far.
I would agree. I mean, with a lot of the foliage and the water and the Mako.
Right. And so I think the reason you come here is because you're looking for Saren. Is that right? You get intel that Saren's hanging out here looking for the conduit. Yeah.
Yeah, you think that he's going to be there.
Right. And so you start out going off in your Mako up the river. You got to like open some gates and shoot down some turrets, all that shit. And, I love my Mako sections, so I kind of like this part. The Mako kind of feels OP, honestly. Like
it is.
You could just mow down anything.
Stuff.
Even when you run into those Colossus things, it's like, I'll just blast them a few times.
Yeah.
So, and then once you get up the river, you meet up with the Solarians at the Solarian camp. And this part is interesting because they basically forced the Normandy to be grounded because Saren's base has like these anti-aircraft guns or something like that, which they call the AA guns. And I think that's interesting because I've been wondering why they were called AA this whole time. Like, are they powered by AA batteries? No, it's anti-aircraft. I'm just now realizing that.
Wow.
So yeah, and your whole team is down there too, which is interesting. I think it's cool. It's like the first time in the game they like bring your team in its entirety off of the ship. So it was cool getting to talk to them. And so the Solarians, they're headed by this guy named Captain Karahe. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but he makes like a motivational speech to everybody and to the other Solarians, and he comes up with a plan to. He wants one of your team members to lead one of his squads and you're going to split up, and they're going to do like a head-on assault against the base while you sneak in and plant a nuke. So we're nuking this shit, I guess, now.
Yep, we're gonna nuke it, but you're missing one vital piece.
Yes. So the Krogans. Apparently, you learn that Saren is breeding Krogans. He's found a cure for the genophage, and so all these Krogans he's breeding are going to be under his command. And so by nuking this base, that's going to get rid of that. And so you can probably guess who doesn't like that idea. It's Rex, our Krogan friend. So how did this play out for you?
He got really mad, and I think I made him even madder. And then he drew his gun on me, and then Ashley shot him in the back.
Oh, so he died for you.
Yes.
That's the way I read that it can play out is it's like you either kill Rex yourself, or if you don't do it, Ashley does, and then or if you have enough persuasion points or whatever, then you can convince Rex to go along with it and not die. I managed to convince him, which thank God, because Rex is my favorite out of everybody.
Oh, you got to keep him?
Yeah. I've heard that you get a different Krogan teammate in the other games if Rex dies here. So.
Yeah, I'll probably get another teammate then, because he died.
Were you sad that happened? Or
I was a little upset. I was like, wait a minute, I liked him.
Yeah. Fitting that it's Ashley, the intergalactic racist that does that.
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised at the options, though. I was sort of hoping I would get the option to not destroy the genophage cure, because I mean, I know it's problematic that the Krogans being able to breed, but it's like it's also kind of sucky that their race is literally dying out because of it.
Yeah, because they're also blood hungry.
Can't we find like a half cure? Like it just stunts their, not make them like totally infertile, just like stunt them a lot less. I don't know. Me, the humanist.
A little bit of the philosophical dilemma there.
Yeah. So it was nice though that you get to this part and your decision actually matters about something.
Yeah.
Like I guess this is probably the first time you can lose a party member. But speaking of losing party members, you do have to choose between Caden and Ashley to lead the Solarian squad. So what did you pick?
I had Ashley lead the Solarian squad and had Caden do the nuke.
Okay, gotcha. That's what I did too. So you go along, you go on this mission, you have to infiltrate a base. There's several side things that you can do to help out the Solarians by like disabling the satellite and taking down the comlink tower, and choosing to like not sound the alarms so there won't be any more pressure on them. Did you do any of that shit?
Yeah, I did. I did as I came across everything.
Yeah, you can actually miss that stuff, and I didn't realize it was like a missable thing. So I'm glad that I actually saw them all on the way. So you eventually catch up with Saren, and you have like a debate. Shepard's like taking cover, and they debate about whether or not Saren's actually being controlled by Sovereign, the Reaper ship. I did end up fighting him here. I don't know if there's a way you can get out of this fight. I'm assuming you did too.
I mean, yeah, I could have killed him though, to be honest. I almost had him dead.
He's flying around on his hoverboard here. It's kind of an interesting boss battle, I guess. Did you have any trouble with it?
Nope. I was about to kill him. And then it cutscene. I was like, what? Are you serious? Yeah.
Honestly, like Corey had the guns powered up so much at this point. It's like I'm just melting through enemies for the most part. There's only one part on this planet where I died a couple times, and I think it was like there's one of those Geth Titans or Geth Destroyers or whatever that just runs right up on you, like a suicide kamikaze almost. But other than that, so you do get rid of Saren, and they bring the nuke in, and Caden stays behind to arm it. Well, at least that's what happened for us.
Yep.
And then you learn that the Solarians are like pressured. And like they can't get out from where they are, and they won't be able to get out in time before the nuke goes off. So I don't think you get a decision here. You decide to go and try and rescue them. Then you get about halfway, and you learn that whoever's arming the nuke is in trouble. So you're given the choice. Like, do you want to go help the Solarian squad, or do you want to go back and help whoever's arming the nuke? So what did you do?
I picked, the Solarian squad. Because I trusted my man.
So it was Ashley with them for you?
Yeah.
Okay. So whoever you don't save, you actually lose. There's no way. I looked it up. There's no way to save both of them. So I guess Ashley survived and Caden died for you, right?
Yep.
And that's the other way around for me. So, yeah.
How dare you?
Well, I don't really care about Ashley. She, like I said, intergalactic racist. And I looked ahead, and Caden is the only male romance option in the series. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
I would say, because I got busy with the other one.
Yeah.
So, okay.
I think I
weird.
take that back. There is one other male romance option, but I wasn't into that character when I saw screenshots of him.
Well,
so.
Which is weird, though, because it's like you have no interaction with either one of these characters, like too hardcore to have some kind of relationship spawn. And all of a sudden it's like, hey, where's your clothes at?
Right. So are you saying that you romanced with Ashley?
I did. Because I didn't have a choice. Like, it was weird. All of a sudden she's like, yeah, let's get busy. I'm like, I don't know you.
Well, in this game, the only options are Ashley and Liara for male shepherd.
Yeah.
So I actually got with Liara. So it's interesting that we went the opposite way.
Nice.
But I encouraged that. There were several conversations where I was like, hey, you want to get busy?
But did you get with Caden?
You can't do that until Mass Effect 3. So I just wanted to make sure that he survived until then.
Oh, you're like, I'm going to tap that.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen.
Fuck the nuke. I need that ass.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, so Liara was an interesting romance scene. I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but you got we saw some blue alien ass. It was very nice. And then, yeah. So how was the Ashley sex scene?
Awkward.
Because
it just happened. I was like, great, this is going on in very high def. My wife's going to walk in and go, what are you playing? Nothing.
Well,
get out.
I'm glad that we had different outcomes because it gives us more to talk about.
Yes.
And if maybe, I know we probably won't do RPG clubs for Mass Effect 2 and 3, but maybe we can do, like, once both of us play through certain parts of it, just kind of do a quick segment on what we think in the episodes.
It's just funny.
Yeah. So now you go back to the Citadel. I think the council calls you because they want to report or something. And you learn that they're upset about your actions. What are they actually mad about? I don't remember. Is it you used a nuke without permission, or?
I think it's because we used a nuke.
Okay.
And we didn't follow the protocols, probably.
I thought we were a Spectre and can do whatever the fuck we wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. If it involves the nuke a planet, sure.
Yeah. So they basically strip you of your Spectre status and they lock down the Normandy. So you've basically lost your command. So once again, Council's fucking us over. I hate them. But we'll talk about the Council more in a little bit. So you have to escape the Citadel, and you get called by Captain Anderson, who used to be your commanding officer and leader of the Normandy. You meet up with him at the club, and he has a plan to get you out of the Citadel. Let's see, there's two options, right? He can go to, like, the control panel somewhere, or at CSEC, I think, or he will hack Ambassador Udina's computer. So which one did you do?
I just told him to go to the ambassador's place.
That's what I did too. And you actually get a scene of him. He's like, I'll get in there somehow. And you get a scene of him just going in and just punching the daylights out of Udina. So it's like, that's one way to do it.
Out of him.
I don't like Udina anyway. So
yeah, I didn't like him. Fuck that guy.
I was happy about that. And then you get out. And I think at this point, well, actually, I think as soon as you go to Virmire, you get locked out of exploring the galaxy as much as you want to. So that's why I went ahead and did every side quest that I could before going to Virmire's, because it was kind of the point of no return. Mm. So then you go to Ilos, which I think it was Ilos actually where the Geth destroyers are giving me a hard time. And this is apparently where the conduit is going to be. That's why Saren's there now. And there's a sequence where they don't have anywhere to land. And so Joker just kind of launches the Mako right on top of Saren, more or less. It's like this big...
Worked out pretty good.
Yeah. But the thing is, Saren immediately seals like a gate between you. And I'm like, well, that did us a lot of good. So you have to go and explore around the planet and find the controls that unlock the gates. Did you have any trouble with this or anything?
Not at all. I was pretty leveled up that
Yeah.
nothing really stood in my way.
Right. So you override security. You go through this big area, and who did you take with you? By the way, do you remember?
Well, because I didn't have Rex anymore.
That's your fault.
I took Liara and Garrus.
Gotcha. I think I took Rex and Tali, my faves. So, if there had been a romance option with Tali in this game, I would have gone for her. So, imagine there being a romance option with Rex. That would have been something.
Oh,
There's no alien male on male romances in the series, though. So,
it just feel like this weird giant mouth licking you.
oh baby, oh yeah.
Yeah.
So eventually you find the conduit, or like this VI thing called what was that thing's called? Virgil?
It's in the archives.
Right.
Yeah.
And you get like a huge exposition plot dump. It explains everything, the whole story, and if you like go through all the different conversation options, it takes like 20 minutes, it feels like. So you learn that the big plan is that apparently the Citadel is actually like a relay station that can open a portal to dark space, which is where the Reapers live, and then all the Reapers will be able to come back and destroy all sentient or all biological life, organic life, I think is what they say.
Yeah.
And so Sovereign is like a sentinel that they leave behind in the normal space, and it activates once every tens of thousands of years to wipe out all organic life. And so the thing, they don't really explain why they do this. They just say the Reapers' thinking is beyond our understanding, or something like that. Yeah. And I actually think this part gets explained, by the Sovereign back on Virmire. I forgot about that part. So you also learn that the Keepers were left behind. They're like subjugated by the Reapers and those little mantis guys on the Citadel. And the reason they left them behind is so they can like facilitate opening the portal and all that when the time comes. So that was some payoff there. I'm glad they actually explained the purpose of the Keepers rather than let it just be this big mystery for the rest of the game.
But the Protheans figured that out, right? And basically turned them off.
Right. Yeah. So now they don't do that anymore. Like the Keepers won't be able to help them accomplish their goal. What else does Virgil tell you? Am I forgetting anything?
No. That if they stop Sovereign and stop this whole deal, the Reapers can't come through.
Right.
And it just happens every time.
Yep. So we just condensed 20 minutes of exposition into 2. But
and Virgil basically killed every last Prothean that was left in the compound.
Right. So they had
energy.
Yeah, they had them in cold storage, and then over time they had to preserve energy. It just had to eventually kill them off. So I guess the Protheans are gone for good.
Yep.
All right, but then sorry, what?
For now.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. Some more.
Yeah. So basically now you got to go to the Citadel and save everybody. And this is where the romance scene takes place. If you have a romance, it's where Rich gets with Ashley and I get with Liara. Yeah. And then, so you go to the Citadel and everything's on fire and burning down and people are dying. Saren's troops are on the warpath. You have to, basically the Sovereign flies in. There's like a full-on Star Wars war going on outside too. So that the Sovereign manages to fly in and then it like wraps itself around the central needle point, the central dot or whatever of the Citadel.
That's where the council sits.
Right. So do you go to the Sovereign first, or do you go to meet Saren first? I can't remember.
Well, you go to where Sovereign or where Saren's at, because he's at the central console turning on the gate.
Right.
Trying to.
So they actually just call this a spacewalk because you're like out in space with low G walking along the walls, but in practice it's the same as always. So,
yep.
That kind of disappointed me. I was hoping for like some low G or like physics changes or something. I don't know. You confront Saren, and you have the opportunity to talk him into convincing him that he's been indoctrinated by Sovereign. How did this conversation go for you?
It didn't go very well because I wanted to shoot him in the face.
So so for me,
I was really aggressive.
I convinced him, and he actually shot himself. So that didn't happen for you?
No. I wanted to shoot him, and I was very aggressive towards him.
Nice. See, for me,
I was
I talked
basically
him down, and he
equivalent
shot
of me
himself in the head.
shaking. Yeah, I was equivalently shaking my penis at him,
Oh,
trying
okay.
to like piss him off. That's basically what I was doing. I didn't
But-
mean to.
It doesn't matter though, because even if he kills himself, the Sovereign still like reanimates him into that final boss, like crazy mutant Saren, which was an interesting fight. It was like those Geth spider guys that jump around on steroids kind of deal. He had a lot of health.
Yeah, he did.
Did you have any problems with the boss?
No,
Gotcha.
still shot him in the face a lot.
Me either. I think I died once, but because I got careless or something. With all the Geth that were trying to attack me at the same time. You defeat Saren, and then you get one last major choice. And you learn that the council has been evacuated, but the ship that they're on is under attack. And so you either can choose to save them or to focus everybody on Sovereign to make sure that the job gets done. So what did you do?
I let the council die.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. I chose to save them. I didn't want to save them, but I actually looked ahead to what the consequences were going to be. And I thought it actually ended up better, in my opinion, if they survived.
Oh.
But then, so they survived, and they gave me the option they were going to add a human specter to the council. Or, not a human specter, a human representative to the council. And it gives you the choice whether to make it Captain Anderson or Ambassador Udina. And I'm like, who the hell would make it the Ambassador? Here you go, Captain.
Yeah.
How'd it play
That's
out for
what
you?
I did. I let them die. Then basically the humans took control of the council, and I put Captain Anderson.
Gotcha. Yeah. I watched a video of what plays out, and the other person chose Ambassador Udina instead of Anderson. And it was kind of like almost like a dark world, like the humans are the villains now type of scene.
Yep.
But it's interesting how, like I mentioned earlier, I like how your decisions in this last section actually super matter. So then what did you think of the ending then?
It was good. Basically sets it up very nicely that the Reapers are still out there and it's still coming.
Yeah.
So you didn't really finish it.
I liked the ending. I think it all played out super cool. The only thing I kind of wished it had given me more resolution on the individual characters. Like you don't get to hear, like Tali or Caden's thoughts on everything that happened. It's just like, okay, we're doing this. And it's kind of a cliffhanger almost.
Yeah.
But yeah, this last section was definitely the best section. Like I said earlier, I kind of wish the whole game had been closer to this level of intensity rather than saving it all for the end. Like I think a lot of that Virgil exposition could have been spread out better across the game or hinted at instead of a plot dump like that. What about you? What did you think of this last section?
I agree with you on that one. It'd have been nice to know a little more details ahead of time about what was going on. But, it kind of wraps up nicely.
Yeah. Okay, well, should we jump into listener feedback then?
Let's do this.
Okay, I'll kick us off. JS says, really enjoyed the finish to this game. Definitely going to play 2 and 3 in the near future. Yeah, I think we're definitely going to play 2 and 3 as well, just maybe not for the show necessarily. Virmire was almost a disaster for me. When I got to the part where Rex is losing his shit over the cure, I was trying to talk him down when Ashley decided to take matters into her own racist hands. Fortunately, I was able to revert to my save prior to starting the last mission and read in the guide I've consulted for side quests about Rex's loyalty mission. This is good because Rex is by far my favorite squad mate. I'll trade every other squad mate's life to save Rex. Yeah, I love Rex too. I think what it was is you either had to have 8 persuasion points or you had to have done Rex's side quest, or else you just can't save him. So, given what she did to Rex in the now erased timeline, it was easy to save Caden when Shep was put in that impossible choice scenario. I've heard she gets less racist in future installments, but I'm cool with not finding out for myself. Yeah, that's my only thing about losing Ashley. Is like I would have liked to have seen where her story goes. But I guess
I will.
Yeah, you can let me know how it goes. But I guess, yeah, you can do it, and that also provides a lot of replay value for the series. He goes on to say, I like the twist that Saren's ship was actually a Reaper, and that it was the ship that was exerting mind control over others, like Benezia, though everyone thought it was Saren. I like how Saren's arc shows the gray area that he probably wasn't totally evil, but became under the control of the Sovereign. The endgame was exciting, and the shootouts in the Citadel were some of the best fights in the game. Mass Effect 2 is definitely high up on my backlog of games after this. Also, I romanced Liara, didn't want anything to do with Ashley.
Jeez.
I can see that.
All right, so Brandon, Rex stuff escalated very quickly. Yes, it's true. Thankfully, I was charismatic enough to not have to kill him, but I feel like all you could do was force Rex to obey rather than actually decide Shepard's stance on the situation.
I agree.
The twist of the Reapers in their nature.
When Rex pointed his gun at me, I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! Let's all be friends here."
Yeah, I thought we were cool.
Yeah.
What's up? Saren's motivations can be boiled down to I, for one, welcome our new robot overlords.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Virmire was one of my favorite main missions. The rest of the squad finally had a role to play besides my backup.
Yeah,
Ashley
that was
did
cool.
not survive in my playthrough. Everybody just killed off Ashley.
I think you're the only one that saved Ashley.
Yeah. Meeting Vigil was cool, but hearing the details of the genocide was pretty dark. I was able to convince Saren to shoot himself with my charisma, but I still had to do the final boss. I chose to save the council since I felt it showed that humanity is willing to coexist with the other races. No, fuck that. I let them die.
Apparently.
I'd say this was the most enjoyable section for me. I let them die because, listen, they were blind to what was going on. So that's why.
Yeah, they definitely didn't deserve redemption, I don't think. But the fact that if they do survive, they add a human to the council is pretty cool. It sounds like Brandon made all the same decisions as me, so we're on the same page there. Okay, Ryan from the Outer Quarters podcast hit us with quite a lengthy feedback here, so thank you, Ryan. They say, just hit credits. I still love this game so much. Fairly certain I 100%ed it. If there were any quests I missed, they were very well hidden. By section 4, I was level 50 plus, which gets absolutely ridiculous with biotic powers as an adept. Let me jump in real quick here. I forgot to talk about side quests earlier. So I did all the side quests that I possibly could. I literally checked a list. But there was one side quest that I had locked myself out of. And it's all the way back on Pharos. And apparently if you don't do it while you're on Pharos, it's called data recovery. You can't go back and do it later. So there was one side quest I didn't get to do, but I did start it when I was on Pharos. And so it's in my journal. So my journal's just forever marred by, by an incomplete side quest. All right, jumping back to Ryan. I also specifically went for upgrades that reduced cooldown time. As a result, whenever my cast of Barrier ended, it was already off cooldown for me to cast again. Did you ever get into the habit, Rich, of using the adept powers or whatever, biotic powers?
I did, only on Unity and Assassination.
Yeah, I used Unity and Barrier a lot. I looked at, apparently there's like a trophy for using each biotic power 25 times, but I never did use them enough to get there, so I might go back and just fuck around with that.
Yeah.
Back to Ryan. Whenever my cast of Stasis wore off, Stasis was off cooldown and ready to cast again, and so on. I also went into the Bastion archetype for Adept, which has the Capstone ability that lets you damage enemies that you have in stasis, which is absolutely broken. You can freeze an enemy for about 20 seconds, though with you, then just getting repeat headshots. There's a slim chance they'll still be alive when it wears off. Sounds like a fun way to play.
Yeah.
This same strat also made the final Saren fight a joke. I should say, though, I love that about Mass Effect 1. If you play an Adept and build it well, you feel like a proper, unstoppable space wizard by the end of the game. That does sound badass. No other game has ever given me that feeling, sadly, including Mass Effect 2 and 3, where I really don't enjoy the admittedly more balanced version of Adept. Oh, that's too bad. It felt really rewarding to reach that point. Overall, my only real sad points are ones that come from lack of time and budget. The fact many side quests use copy-paste areas and only resolve themselves in paragraphs of text is a shame, but I get it. Yeah, I agree. I really enjoy the writing, though, oh god, everything before, during, and after the sex scene had me cringing so hard. Which is par for the course for video games, I suppose. All in all, I love Section 4. I think everything in it has so many good moments. Being able to potentially love 2 out of 6 party members in the third last mission is really cool. And it all leads really solid to a satisfying conclusion. I really can't wait to dive into Mass Effect 2 again. Oh yeah, here's my bonus stuff. I saved Rex, saved Ashley, saved the Council, romanced Liara. Okay, so somebody else saved Ashley.
Yeah.
Between us and the listeners, I think we explored every option for the end, I guess.
Yeah. All right, so Frost. Absolutely love absolutely the best part of the game. Virmire and Ilos are fantastic. At Citadel, I managed to talk Saren out of the first fight, but Sovereign still mutates him and has has you fight him in the end anyway. One thing that Mass Effect 1 really lacks is good boss fights. If I recall, there's a lot better in Mass Effect 2. For decisions, I decided to put down Rex. I also let the council die. I made sure to advocate for an all-human council with Udini as his chairman. Why would you do that? It's like horrible. It's like giving Darth Vader control.
I watched the video that he posted down here, and it is kind of like a evil ending. Like, and Udina makes this really like dictatorish sounding speech, and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe that wasn't the right choice.
Yeah, because it hasn't the council and all these other races been up and running for a long time, and the humans just happen to show up.
Yeah, I mean, and
it's
been, I can't remember the exact timeline, but the humanity is like relatively new to all.
Yeah, that's aliens. Like giving the new kid, complete control without really knowing him.
And then they ended by saying humanity first here. Okay, so I guess Frost is an intergalactic racist too.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. It's all right. Such a good ending. That's what he says. Humanity first. Okay.
All right, Frost. Frost went out to be the biggest asshole he could, so that doesn't surprise me that it went that way.
Yep.
And finally, as you guys know, Caslo25 has a series on YouTube dedicated to the RPG Club, and so we're going to play a little clip showing his thoughts on the last section.
Before turning to the story, I wanted to touch on something from the last section that I forgot to mention that gets even better in this section. It's that I've begun to make better use of Shepard's biotic powers, particularly the ability Throw. I usually use Throw whenever it's available to knock down an enemy unit and unload gunfire into it while it's vulnerable. This was even more fun during the final mission, when you're fighting on the outside of the Citadel, and using Throw will one-shot enemies by throwing them out into space. Turning to the story beats, I don't have much to say on Virmire, as it tended to be just another average story mission, and Ilos had problems as well, such as all the plot being delivered to you at once by an AI near the end of the game. It was just one massive lore dump. However, I do take solace in noting that the Keepers would be important to the story in the first section. I might have been a little bit off, but they still were key to Saren's plan. It was some real nice validation. Ultimately, the final mission of the game is definitely the high point of the game. I particularly love the portion where you're fighting on the side of the Citadel, trying to make it to the Council Chamber. However, it's then followed up with a real letdown of a final boss. Saren's Geth form was not very different than fighting any other wall-jumping Geth from the game, just with 1,000 times more health. At the end of the day, I don't think that the better quality of the final mission justifies the game as a whole. If it were not for the RPG Club, I would not have finished this game. And I'm not exactly jumping to get into Mass Effect 2. But that's it for the Mass Effect RPG Club. I'm not sure what the next RPG Club game is, but hit that subscribe button if you want to.
Yeah, go follow and subscribe to Caslo25 on YouTube and all that. It sounds like out of everybody, Caslo was the most negative about this last section.
Yeah, but the section I felt it, but the game overall, I'll have some negative feels for it.
Oh yeah, I don't love the game, but I also don't dislike it.
Yeah, I don't hate it.
Yeah, I'm thinking next week we'll do a normal episode, and then maybe the week after that we can start the review.
Yeah.
Although Caslo also mentioned that the Virmire was another standard story mission, and I thought it was like one of the best story missions. Not much standard about it personally, but maybe he meant gameplay wise.
Probably.
But all right, I guess should we go ahead and close out the club?
Let's do this.
All right, that's it for the Mass Effect RPG Club forever. And yeah, so we're finished our review of Final Fantasy II. We finished the Mass Effect RPG Club. By the way, that song was another remix of Uncharted Worlds, this time by Alex Ness on YouTube. I couldn't find a remix of a different track, which is not surprising because Mass Effect has like 2 good songs in it, so, in my opinion. But, Rich, what are we doing next week?
Oh, man, next week we're going to do a catch-up episode with some news and some other good stuff.
Yeah, it'll just be like, it's been a few episodes since it's been me and Rich now, not counting this RPG Club, so I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about. As for the RPG Club, there is no current ongoing RPG Club for the moment, so no checkpoints or anything to worry about, but nominations will begin on December 12th. And yeah, if you are interested in influencing what game ends up being the next RPG Club game, $5 and above patrons will have access to the nominations and voting on that. So now's your time to get in if you want to maybe get a certain game picked. But the RPG Club is open to everybody, not just patrons. So let's get into our plugs.
All right. So you guys can rate and review us at any of your podcasting places you like to listen to, iTunes, Stitcher, a few other places. Rate and review us very highly, that way we can get up there in the ratings, so we can have more and more people join us here on our RPG After Years adventure.
And tell a friend. Tell anybody, you got some RPG friends, tell them about us.
Yes. Patreon is another way you could support the show. You get early episode access, ad-free episodes, extra reviews. There are 20 of them plus now. That's a lot. The RPG Club, which has become a very popular segment of the show, and many, many more. You can find that at patreon.com/RPG After Years.
You can also find us streaming on Twitch, as long as it's me and Rich, every Sunday, usually at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. That's at twitch.tv/RPG After Years. You can be a part of the show. You can also, if you want to contact us directly, email us at our email account, which is rpgafteryears@gmail.com.
You can talk to the community that we have built very nicely on Discord. You can find that link found in the show notes or our pinned tweet on Twitter.
That's where all the RPG Club discussions take place as well. So if you're participating, jump on in. We're also on Twitter. You can find the show at RPG Years. If you want to contact us directly, I'm at the Scott Spot, and you can find Bill at Matunica with 2 N's.
And you can find me at HailBlue1569.
And that's going to be it for the review and for the Mass Effect RPG Club. Kind of a full episode. I think it's going to end up being a long one. Sorry to say. But you can join us next week as we get caught up for a more casual episode. Discuss all the latest news. But until then, I'm Scott.
And I'm Rich.
And we'll see you next time, Space Cowboys.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
The beast has been slain. The world has been saved. Our heroes are basking in the after years. They rest in the tavern for all to hear. Their tale of victory and conquered fears. Revel in the peace that reigns through the land. All will know it was by our heroes' hands. Here in the after years. Here in the RPG After Years. RPG After Years.